Hi, friends.
Hello.
I'm Avalon.
I'm Sabrina.
And welcome to our channel where we read random books and stuff. Sorry this thing got posted last week. Her computer had a virus and completely crashed and deleted everything.
Wipe everything.
Yeah, so that was an experience. So we're re-recording this and the other episode from last week to record this week. So we do know what happens, so we'll try not to spoil it for you as best we can. I was like, okay, we gotta reread the chapter to remember what happened in the last chapter so we don't accidentally spoil anything.
Yes.
So, yeah, without further ado, chapter 8, part 2, retake. Oh.
Something.
So summary, recap of chapter 7.
Last chapter, basically the big thing that happened was Vicky was in a trance at school in the cafeteria and she started to strip down all the way to her underwear basically, and Elena stopped her right before she got naked, and it seemed like Vicky was in a trance. She came out of it. She what and then
she was like, "You're one of them.
Yeah, you're evil," or something like that.
You're one of them. You're evil. Wow.
And so there was that, and that's basically the big portion of the chapter.
There wasn't much meat and potatoes to that chapter. It was just like some side string beans here.
Oh yeah, and Matt and Stefan are out looking for the Verbane.
Was that chapter?
I think so.
I hope so.
Because they weren't around.
I hope so. I think so.
I think so.
I think so. I hope so.
Yeah.
I'm not going to reread that entire chapter right now and hope that's... Pray that was part of that chapter.
Yeah. Our theory board hasn't changed. Oh, we forgot to add something to it, but here it is.
I think it was actually from this reading, so yeah.
Oh, yeah, I think you're right, actually.
Yeah, so it's kind of okay that we didn't add it. It was all part of the events.
Yeah, so same things. Meredith will get killed off. Seymour Bonnie's powers develop. Catherine is alive, and Robert will get killed off.
To make way for
Alaric to move in on the ant. Woo! I'm so excited. Okie dokie, let's jump into it.
Sorry, buddy, I gotta stop scratching your head.
Stop the scritches.
Stop the scritches. I got a job to do.
Yes.
Chapter 8. I feel like there should be chapter titles, but there's not. It makes me very sad.
Yeah.
But there should be.
Just has a number.
It doesn't even say chapter 8. It just
says the number
8.
Yeah.
How plain. How boring. Okay. Anyway, do you know what's strange about what Vicky did at school? I mean, besides from the obvious things Bonnie said, licking chocolate frosting off of her fingers. What? Said Elena dully. Well, the way she ended up in her slip, she looked just like she did when we found her on the road. Only then she was all scratched up too. Cat scratches, we thought, said Meredith, finishing her last bite of cake. She seemed to be one of those quiet, thoughtful moods. Right now she was watching Elena closely, but it doesn't seem very likely. Elena looks straight back at her. Maybe she fell in some brambles, she said.
I remember what we were going to add.
Yep.
Yeah.
Do you want to say it now?
Yeah, because I think it was in the previous chapter that it's Catherine could be shapeshift into a cat.
Yeah, because she had cat scratches on her the day that
the cemetery stuff happened.
Yeah, the cemetery stuff happened, and because Damon can turn into a crow, and you can turn so.
And there was another reference about a cat when Elena was at Bonnie's house.
She was saying that she was like a playful kitten.
Yeah.
Or something like
that. Like a snow lion.
Like Elena was like a snow leopard, and Catherine was more like a playful kitten.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we think Catherine's shapeshift animal is a cat. So that's going to be put on the board too.
Yes.
Yes. I knew we needed to add some.
Well, I think that was actually, we figured that we were
figuring it out
on chapter 8.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Figuring out. We were thinking crows and then cats and yeah. Anyways.
Falling off the
bed.
The bed
the
there,
couch.
buddy. Okay. Meredith finished her last bite of cake. She seemed to be in one of her quiet, thoughtful moods. Right now, she was watching Elena closely. That doesn't seem very likely. Elena looked straight back at her. Maybe she fell in some brambles, she said. But if you guys are finished eating, do you want to see the first note? They left their dishes in the sink, climbed the stairs to get to Elena's room. Elena felt herself flush as the other girls read the note. Bonnie and Meredith were her best friends, maybe her only friends now. She'd read the note passages from her diary before, but this was different. It was the most humiliating feeling she'd ever had. Well, she said to Meredith.
Oh, yes, it's coming back to me. I remember what happens in this chapter or chapter 9.
You're like, don't spoil things. Don't spoil things.
It's coming back. I remember exactly what we read.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But we're not going to spoil it for them.
No.
The person who wrote this is 5 feet, 11 inches tall, walks with a slight limp, and wears a false mustache, Meredith intoned. Sorry, she added, seeing Elena's face. Not funny. Actually, there's not much to go on. Is there? The writing looks like a guy's, but the paper looks feminine. And the whole thing has sort of a feminine touch, put in Bonnie, bouncing slightly on Elena's bed. Well, it does, she said defensively. Quoting bits of your diary back at you is kind of kind of thing a woman would think of. Men don't care about diaries. You just don't want it to be Damon, said Meredith. I would think you'd be more worried about him being a psycho killer than a diary thief. I don't know. Killers are sort of romantic. Imagine you dying in the with hands around your throat. He's strangled the life out of you, and the last thing you'd see would be his face. Putting her own hands around her throat, Bonnie gasped and expired tragically. Ending up draped across the bed. He can have me anytime, she said, eyes still closed. I feel like that would be something that we would talk about too.
It absolutely is. Absolutely.
Except I can't imagine having somebody, like, be romantic that somebody's killing you.
I guess. Well, people like to be choked.
That's true. That is a thing.
Close
like,
enough.
That's weird. Meredith, are you into, or is this Bonnie? I can't remember. Is this Bonnie? Bonnie, are you into, like, some
S&M?
kink stuff? Some kink stuff here? It was on Elena's lips to say, don't you understand this is serious? But instead she hissed under her breath. Oh, God, she said, and she ran to the window. The day was humid and stifling, and the window had been opened. Outside, on the skeletal branches of the quince tree, was a crow. Elena threw the...
A crow, huh?
A crow. Elena threw the sash down so hard that the glass rattled and tinkled. The crow gazed at her through trembling panes with eyes like obsidian. Rainbows glimmered on its sleek black plumage. Why did you say that? She said, turning to Bonnie. Hey, there's nobody out there, said Meredith gently, unless you count the birds.
You should.
You should count birds. She needs to tell them the whole story.
She really does. I feel like it's getting to a point where it's just
it's to the point where it's like, okay, come on,
their lives.
Like, especially because they're involved. Like, you know that he's a psycho killer. How would you feel if I came
and told you that, like, well, my boyfriend's a vampire, by the
and
way.
His brother's a psycho killer that turns into a crow, and you probably shouldn't invite anybody into your house.
Yeah. How would you react, though?
Exactly. It's like,
What drugs are you
on? But hey, she might have some proof to, like, prove that, right? Like, she has the holes in her neck that she's had. And, like, I mean, there's, like, a couple of things that she could totally, like, prove it with. And, like, yeah. Like, it makes a lot of sense. But if I had those
evidence.
But, like, especially with, like, Mr. Tanner being killed with all of his blood drains, like...
Mm-hmm. And the old man at the creek.
Yeah, like, it would make so much sense.
And why Stefan didn't want the doctors.
Yep.
Yeah.
I would get my friends involved. I know she's like, it's Stefan's secret to share, but come on, it's involving them and their safety. Like, that's...
They need to know.
They need to know.
Agreed.
Anyway.
I tell you.
Anyway.
If I was dating a vampire, I tell you.
Are you dating a vampire?
I don't know. Ask Ryan. If he is. He looks like one.
He is pretty white.
He's pretty pale. He has like a big smile.
Very toothy grin. Elena turned away from them. The tree was empty now. I'm sorry, said Bonnie in a small voice after a moment. It's just that it doesn't seem real sometimes. Even Mr. Tanner being dead doesn't seem real. And Damon did look, well, exciting, but dangerous. I can believe he's dangerous. And besides, he wouldn't squeeze your throat, he can cut into it, Meredith said. Or at least that's what he did to Tanner. And the old man under the bridge had his throat ripped open, as if an animal had gotten to it, said Meredith. Meredith looked at Elena for clarification. Damon doesn't have an animal, does he? No, I don't know. Suddenly, Elena felt very tired. She was worried about Bonnie and the consequences of the foolish words.
I think I gave Jasmine too much money.
That's so random.
Alright, I just was looking over, I saw the bread, like, I don't think those are mine. I think one is mine.
Both of those are yours.
They are? Okay, then never mind. Okay, that was good.
That was really random. Okay,
Sorry.
anyway.
I'm sorry.
We just recorded an episode, and there's like this bread place that's like 2 hours from here. And a friend went and was in that area, and she bought us like this really, really good bread. But yeah, she just loves.
And yeah, and I just thought I overpaid her.
Anyway, back to the book. I can do anything to you, and the ones you love, she remembered. What might Damon do now? She didn't understand him. See, exactly. I can do anything to the ones you love. Okay, come on, Elena.
Yeah. It's time to tell him.
This is the part where Damon goes and kills, like,
what if he kills Meredith?
He might kill Meredith, but I was thinking more like, the stepdad. We need to kill off the stepdad so Alara can get.
You mean the uncle? Step uncle?
Yeah, step uncle.
Uncle? Yeah.
Step uncle. Yeah. We need to kill him off somehow.
Alara just needs to move in with the aunt.
Yeah.
It's just like.
We're totally
slide in there.
We are slide into the DMs right there. Like, come on.
Alara, come on.
Okay.
Come on.
He was different every time they met. In the gym, he had been taunting, laughing at her, but the next time she could swear that he had been serious, quoting poetry to her, trying to get her to come away with him. Last week, with the icy graveyard wind lashing around him, he'd been menacing and cruel, and underneath his mocking words last night, she felt the same menace. She couldn't predict what he'd do next. But whatever happened, she had to protect Bonnie and Meredith from him, especially since she couldn't warn them properly. But she could.
Exactly. I was about to say she could, though.
But she could.
What?
What's stopping you?
Huh.
And what was Stefan up to? She needed him right now more than anything. Where was he? So you're right. He is off picking flowers.
With Matt. And Matt doesn't know. Matt just knows that it's a specific flower for Elena, but he doesn't know what type of flower it is, and it's not in Mystic Falls.
Where's Stefan? Oh, he's off with his boyfriend picking flowers in a field.
Well, he's off with Elena's
who's a boy.
Ex-boyfriend who was dumped for him, for Stefan.
Yeah. And
they're bonding in his truck.
Yeah, they're bonding together,
flowers.
Picking flowers.
Specific flowers for Elena.
Who is Matt's ex-boyfriend and the current.
Matt's ex-girlfriend.
Yeah, that.
Not ex-boyfriend.
Wait, what?
You said it. Matt's ex-boyfriend.
It's been a long day, okay? It's been a long day. All right, let's go do
Continue.
It started that morning. Let me get this straight, Matt said, leaning against the scarred body of the ancient Ford sedan, and Stefan approached him before school. You want to borrow my car? Yes, Stefan said. And the reason you want to borrow it is for flowers. You want to get some flowers for Elena. Yes. And these particular flowers, you've got to get, don't grow here. They might, but their blooming season is far north, and the frost would have finished them off anyway. So you want to go down south. How far south, you don't know, to find these flowers that you just have to get to give to Elena. Or at least some of the plants, Stefan said. I'd rather have the actual flowers, though. And since the police still have your car, you want to borrow mine. For however long it takes to get you to drive down south and get these flowers that you just have to give to Elena. I figure driving is the least conspicuous way to leave town, Stefan explained. I don't want to have the police follow me. Uh-huh. And that's why you want my car. Yes. Are you going to give it to me? Am I going to give my car to the guy who stole my girlfriend and now wants to take a jaunt down south to get her some kind of special flowers she has just got to have? Are you crazy?
Oh my god.
Oh, Matt.
Maddie.
Oh, Matt.
Oh gosh.
Matt, who had been staring out over the roofs of the frame houses across the street, turned at last to look at Stefan. His blue eyes, usually cheerful and straightforward, were full of utter disbelief and surmounted by twisted, puckering eyebrows. Stefan turned away. He should have known better. After everything Matt had already done for him, to expect anything more was ridiculous, especially these days when people flinched from the sound of his step and avoided his eyes when they came near. To expect Matt, who was the best of the reasons to resent him, to do such a favor with no explanation on the basis of faith alone was just insane. No, I'm not sorry, he said quietly and turned to go. Oh, sorry. No, I'm not crazy, he said quietly and turned to go. Neither am I, Matt said, and I'd have to be crazy to turn my car over to you. Hell no, I'm going with you. By the time Stefan had turned around, Matt was looking at the car instead of him, lower lip thrust forward in a wry, judicious pout. After all, he said, rubbing his flaking vinyl off the roof, you might scratch the paint or something. Elena, oh, Matt, you're just too nice.
You can't say no.
Yeah, he's just too nice. I want to adopt him. I already have a husband, but I'll adopt him. I'll adopt him as like a, I don't know. I don't even know. Don't even look at me like that.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, he's like Gary.
He's very similar to Gary.
Yeah.
Very similar. I see why you like drawn to him.
Yeah.
More so than the other characters.
Yeah.
Like a soft spot for him.
Hey,
He's
my
like
husband's got blue eyes and is like
sandy hair
and is like super kind and taking care of people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Though he also has a like prankster streak. Like he like while I'm in the shower, he'll like fill up a cup of cold water and just throw it over the edge of the shower just because.
To get your reaction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he does have a prankster streak, but overall he's a really good guy.
A little devilish.
Reminds me of Matt.
Yeah.
That's why I was like, I'll adopt him. I'll take him.
Just take him in.
Elena, put the fame...
Why do you have Halloween out?
What do you mean, why do I have It's not Halloween.
Is that Hogwarts?
Yeah.
Oh, it's Hagrid's house.
Yeah,
pumpkin patch.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You're right. I did have Harry Potter out for Halloween.
Yeah.
But I decided to build.
Keep it?
Yeah. Well, I built this
that
one recently, so I just kept it out for a display.
Gotcha. Well, Halloween's only 6 months away. So
we'll just leave it out, and then I'll take out the Hogwarts Express and everything else that I have for Harry Potter.
Halloween?
Yeah, I don't usually have like Halloween decorations. I do Hogwarts.
Themes.
Yeah, I do themes. This year was Hogwarts. We're talking about I might do Hogwarts again this year because I really liked that one.
Yeah.
We had a party at our house where we like sorted our friends into like different houses, and then we like had competitions against each other to win the house cup. So we had like Quidditch, Pong, and we had, what else? I'm trying to think of other things.
Dance.
Oh, we did Just Dance with Halloween songs, and then
Mario Karts. Oh, we had board games. We had
a Harry Potter like Diagon Alley board game, and then we had I think we did Cards Against Humanity too.
We did.
Yeah, it was fun.
It was good. It was
fun.
a good one.
Do you remember who won? I can't remember. I think it was Ravenclaw.
I think Ravenclaw. I think so. Yeah.
Anyway,
I was so bummed because Ryan got Hufflepuff and I got Gryffindor, but I'm not Hufflepuff. He's Ravenclaw. So school.
I'm a Hufflepuff too. I don't think I got a Hufflepuff.
No, we were in Gryffindor together.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
But I took Ryan's
Mask.
mask.
I
And
had
cup.
my I had an Etsy store for a little while. I closed it down, but I made these like Harry Potter masks that were black until you started breathing on them, and then once you started breathing on them, the black would go away, and then you could see what house you were in. So when we were sorting everyone into the houses, everyone had to put a mask on because of COVID, and you could see what house they were in
Based on their mask.
Yeah, so it was kind of fun.
It was fun. I liked it.
Anyway,
moving on. Sorry.
Moving on.
Big distraction.
We've got so many like random stuff tonight. I think it's just because we had a friend over. We're just in this like talkative mood.
And we also haven't seen each other in like almost a month. So
it wasn't almost a month. It was like 2 weeks because I went to Orlando.
Oh yeah, I saw you for Easter.
Yeah.
It was 2 weeks. It feels like a month.
Elena put the phone back on the hook. Somebody was at the boarding house because someone kept picking up the phone when it rang. But after, there was only silence and the click of disconnection. She suspected it was Miss Flowers, but she didn't tell her anything about where Stefan was. Instinctively, she wanted to go to him, but it was dark outside and Stefan had warned her specifically not to go out when it was dark, especially not anywhere near the cemetery or the woods. The boarding house was near both. No answer, said Meredith as Elena came back and sat down on the bed. She keeps hanging up on me, Elena said, and muttered something under her breath. Did you say she was a witch? No, but it rhymes with that, said Elena.
Yeah.
Look, said Bonnie, sitting up. If Stefan's going to call, he's going to call here. There's no reason for you to come and stay the night with me. There was a reason, although Elena couldn't quite explain it to herself. After all, Damon had kissed Bonnie at a Larg Saltzman party. It was Elena's fault that Bonnie was in danger in the first place. Somehow she felt that if she were the last, as if she were the least on the scene, she might be able to protect Bonnie. Oh, if she were at least on the scene, she might be able to protect Bonnie. I don't know how. You're a human. Honestly, I think that puts her more in danger, but whatever.
Mm-hmm. And Bonnie's more non-human than anyone else.
Yeah, she's a witch.
She's a witch.
And I think with Damon being the way he is, he's kind of like a showman. He's like, I want to show you that I hurt your friend. As where if she wasn't there,
he's definitely ringleader of a circus.
Yeah, like he wants to put on a spectacle.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway. My mom and dad and Mary are all home, Bonnie persisted. We all lock our doors and windows and everything since Mr. Tanner was murdered. This weekend, Dad even put extra locks. I don't see what you can do. Elena didn't either, but she was just going just the same. She left a message for Stefan with Aunt Judith, telling him where she was. There was still a lingering constraint against her and her aunt, and there would be, Elena thought, until Aunt Judith changed her mind about Stefan. At Bonnie's house, she was given a room that had belonged to one of Bonnie's sisters who was now in college. The first thing she did was check the window. It was closed and locked, and there was nothing outside that someone could climb, like a drain pipe or a tree. As inconspicuously as possible, she checked Bonnie's room.
I feel like this is the third time we're reading this.
It's not.
It feels like this is like the third
You're like,
time.
I know what has happened. And any others that she could get into. Let them be excited, okay?
Oh, I am. I'm not saying a thing.
Don't complain.
Mm-mm.
Bonnie was right. They were all sealed up tight from the inside. Nothing from the outside could get in. She lay in the bed a long time at night, staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. She kept remembering Vicky dreamily doing a striptease in the cafeteria. What was wrong with that girl? She would remember to ask Stefan the next time she saw him. Thoughts of Stefan were pleasant, even with all the terrible things that had happened recently. Elena smiled in the darkness, letting her mind wander. Someday, all of the harassment would be over, and she and Stefan would plan a life together. Of course, they hadn't actually said anything about it, but Elena herself was sure she was going to marry Stefan or no one else. And Stefan was going to marry her, no one else but her. Wow, it's a little,
excessive.
Yeah. Like, you're in high school, get over yourself. The transition into dreaming was smooth and gradual, and she scarcely noticed it, but she knew somehow she was dreaming I'm reading way too fast, I need to slow down. if was as if a little part of her was standing aside and watching the dream like a play. She was sitting in the long hallway, which was covered with mirrors on one side and windows on the other. She was waiting for something. Then she saw a flicker of movement, and Stefan was standing outside the window. His face was pale, and his eyes were hurt and angry. She went over to the window, but she couldn't hear what he was saying because of the glass. In one hand, he was holding a book with a blue velvet cover, and kept gesturing to it and asking her something. Then he dropped the book and turned away. "Stefan, don't go! Don't leave me!" she cried. Her fingers flattened whitely on the glass. Then she noticed that there was a latch on the side of the window, and she opened it, calling to him. But he had disappeared, and outside she saw only swirling white mist. Disconsolately, she turned away from the window and began walking down the hall. Her own image glimmered in the mirror after mirror as she went by them. Then something out of one of the reflections caught her eye. The eyes were her eyes, but there was a new look in them, a predatory look, sly look. Vicky's eyes had looked that way when she was undressing, and there was something disturbing and hungry about her smile. You okay?
Yeah. It was focused on the pillow.
Oh.
To have it focused on you.
I mean, we could pretend that the pillow is reading. We'll just put it in front of me, just go like this.
It's a pillow.
Nobody here, it's the pillow reading. As she watched, standing still, the image suddenly whirled around and around as if dancing. Horror swept over Elena. She began to run down the hall, but now all the reflections had a life of their own, dancing, beckoning at her, laughing at her. Just as she thought her heart and lungs would burst in terror, she reached the end of the corridor and flung open a door. She was standing in a large and beautiful room. The lofty ceiling was intricately carved and inlaid with gold. The doorways were faced with white marble. Classical statues stood in niches along the walls. Elena had never seen a room of such splendor, but she knew where she was, in Renaissance Italy, when Stefan had been alive. She looked down at herself, and she was wearing a dress like the one she had made for Halloween, the ice blue Renaissance ball gown. But the dress was a deep ruby red, and around her waist she wore a thin chain set with bright red stones. Same stones were in her hair. When she moved, the silk shimmered like flames in the light of hundreds of torches. At the far end of the room, two huge doors swung inward. A figure appeared between them. It walked towards her, and she saw it was a young man dressed in Renaissance clothing, doublet and a hose, and a fur-trimmed jerkin. "Stefan!" She started towards him eagerly, feeling the weight of her dress swinging from her waist. But when she got closer, she stopped, drawing in a sharp breath. It was Damon. He kept on walking towards her, confident, casual. He was smiling, a smile of challenge. Reaching her, he put one hand over his heart and bowed. Then he held out a hand to her as if daring her to take it. "Do you like dancing?" he asked, except that his lips didn't move. The voice was in her mind. Her fear drained away, and she laughed at him. What was wrong with her to have ever been afraid of him? They understood each other very well, but instead of taking his hand, she turned away, the silk of the dress turning after her. She moved lightly towards one of the statues along the wall, not glancing back to see if he was following her. She knew he would. She pretended to be absorbed in the statue, moving away again, and then he reached her, biting her lip to hold in the laughter. She felt wonderful right now, so alive, so beautiful. Dangerous, of course, this game was dangerous, but she had always enjoyed danger. The next time he drew near to her, she glanced at him teasingly as she turned. He reached out, but caught only the jewel chain around her waist. He let go quickly, and looking back, she saw that the prolonged setting on one of the gems had cut him. A drop of blood on his finger was just the color of her dress. His eyes flashed at her sideways, and his lips curved into a taunting smile as he held the wounded finger up. "You wouldn't dare," those eyes said. "Oh, would I?" Elena told him with her own eyes. Boldly, she took his hand and held it a moment, teasing him. She brought the finger to her lips. After a few moments, she released it and looked up at him. "I do like dancing," she said, and found that, like him, she could speak with her mind. It was a thrilling sensation. She moved to the center of the room and waited. He followed her, graceful as a stalking beast. His fingers were warm and hard. They clasped hers. There was music, although it faded in and out and sounded far away. Damon placed the other hand on her waist. She could feel the warmth of his fingers there, the pressure. She picked up her skirts and began dancing. It was lovely, like flying, and her body knew how to move. They danced around and around the empty room, in perfect timing together. He was laughing down at her, his dark eyes glittering with enjoyment. She felt so beautiful, so poised and alert and ready for anything. She couldn't remember when she had this much fun. Gradually, though, his smile faded and their dancing slowed. At last, she stood unmoving in the circle of his arms. His dark eyes were not amused any longer, but fierce and heated. She looked up at him soberly, unafraid, and then, for the first time, she felt as if she were dreaming. She felt slightly dizzy and very languid and weak. The room around her was blurring, and she could see only eyes. They were making her feel more and more sleepy. She allowed her own eyes to half close, her head to fall back. She sighed. She could feel his gaze now, on her lips, on her throat. She smiled to herself and let her eyes close completely. He was supporting her weight now, keeping her from falling down. She felt his lips on her neck, burning hot, as if he had a fever. Then she felt the sting, like 2 jabs of needles. It was over quickly, though, and she relaxed to the pressure of having her blood drawn out. She remembered this feeling, the feeling of floating on a bed of golden light. A delicious languor stole through all of her limbs. She felt drowsy, as if she were too much trouble to move. She didn't want to move away. She felt too good. Her fingers were resting on his hair, clasping his head to her. Idly, she threaded them through the soft, dark strands. His hair was like silk, warm and alive under her fingers. When she opened her eyes a slit, she saw that it reflected rainbows in the candlelight, red, blue, and purple, just like the feathers. And then everything shattered. There was a pain in her throat suddenly, as if a soul being torn out of her. She was pushing at Damon, clawing at him, trying to force him away. Screams rained through her ears. Damon was fighting her, but it wasn't Damon. It was a crow. Huge wings beat against her, thrashing in the air. Her eyes were open. She was awake and screaming. The ballroom was gone, and there was a darkened bedroom. But the nightmare had followed her. Even as she reached for the light, it came on again, wings flashed, thrashing at her face, beak diving for her. Elena struck at it, one hand flung up to protect her eyes. She was still screaming. She couldn't get away from it. The terrible wings kept flailing frantically with the sound of 1,000 decks of cards being shuffled at once. The door burst open and she heard shouts. The warm, heavy body of the crow struck at her, and her screams went higher. Then someone was pulling her off the bed, and she was standing protected behind Bonnie's father. He had a broom and was beating the bird with it. Bonnie was standing in the doorway. Elena ran to her arms. Bonnie's father was shouting, and then came the slam of the window. "It's out," Mr. Connolly said, breathing hard. Mary and Mrs. Connolly were just outside in the hallway, clad in bathrobes. "You're hurt," Mrs. Connolly said, to Elena's amazement. The nasty thing pecked at you." "I'm sorry," Elena said, brushing the spot of blood on her face. She was so shaken that her knees were about to give out. "How did it get in?" said Bonnie. Mr. Connolly was inspecting the window. "You shouldn't have left this open," he said. "And what did you want to take the locks off for?" "I didn't," Elena cried. "It was unlocked and open, and I heard screaming and came in," Bonnie's father said. "I don't know who else would have opened it but you." Elena choked back her protest. Hesitantly, cautiously, she moved to the window. He was right. The locks had been unscrewed, and it had been done so from the inside. "Maybe you were sleepwalking," said Bonnie, leading Elena away from the window as Mr. Connolly began putting the locks back on. "We'd better get you cleaned up." "Sleepwalking?" Suddenly the entire dream flooded back to Elena, the hall of mirrors, and the ballroom, and Damon, dancing with Damon. She pulled out of Bonnie's grasp. "I'll do it myself," she said, hearing her own voice quiver at the edge of hysteria. "No, I want to." She escaped into the bathroom and stood with her back to the locked door, trying to breathe. The last thing she wanted to do was look in the mirror, but at last, slowly, she approached the one over the sink, trembling as she saw the edge of her reflection moving inch by inch until she was framed in the silvery surface. Her image stared back, ghostly pale, with eyes that looked bruised and frightened. They were deep shadows underneath the smears of blood on her face. Slowly she turned her head slightly and lifted her hair. She almost cried out loud when she saw what was underneath. 2 little wounds, fresh and open on the skin of her neck. Oh, you Damon. Sneaking in.
He's such like a hound.
I know.
Sneaky.
Sneaky. He did get clearance to come into that house the night of the seance.
He did. He sure did.
When they were trying to invite Elena's future husband in there. So he's been in that house before.
Yeah. So he can come as he pleases.
Yeah.
I think he like tranced Elena in her dream to open the window from the inside though.
You think he would be strong enough to like break the window though to get in, like if he really wanted to?
Well, Bonnie's dad said that they were unlocked, so they weren't broken.
Yeah, but I'm saying he didn't need to go through all of that effort to like trance her to get her to go over to the window.
But I think it was more fun for him to do that.
Probably, like we said, he's like a showman. He likes to play it up. Such a drama king.
Yeah, really, he really is. But to get her while she's sleeping, that's such an invasion of like privacy.
Yeah.
That's not okay. But that's Damon. He never does something that's okay.
He likes to overstep the line.
Boundaries all the time. Yeah.
Yep. While she's sleeping though. Like, man.
It's weird. I want to sleep.
And then it was like one of those things where like he must have been watching her while she sleeps, which is like even like creepier to think about. Like
he had been standing there like watching her sleepwalk through all this.
But if you remember right, there was a crow at the first house too, like at her house. So he heard the whole plans to be going over to Bonnie's house. Yeah. So he was like, I got time to plan this and get this ready so that I can just transfer to get her blood.
I feel like that's what he does. Is when he wants to know what's going on, he disguises himself as a crow.
Yeah.
I absolutely think so. I think we're also about to meet Catherine.
I think so too.
I think she's doing a lot of I guess innuendos, like hints.
Not innuendos, but what's it called? Foreshadowing.
That's it.
Innuendos is like, hey.
True.
Yeah.
I'm really tired.
It's okay. You had a long day at work, and it is like what 11 at night.
Yeah. Foreshadowing for Catherine to come in.
I think I'm pretty strongly confident that she's going to be showing up relatively soon.
Yes, I agree with that.
Especially like with the whole cat thing, I think that's going to be a thing.
I agree. Some bright headlights.
I was some really bright headlights. Well, she needs to go to bed.
I need to go to bed.
She's dying. I kept seeing you yawn over there. It was like, my voice is going to put her to sleep. She's going to fall asleep. Yeah. And this is just going to be a video of me talking to myself while she sleeps through the episode. Exactly. I mean, I guess we've already read it, so I could have just like woken you up at the end like, hey, time to talk about it.
You could have, but that's okay. That's okay. I do think that Matt and Stefan are going to bond a little bit.
I feel like they've always been bonding, though.
But I feel like Matt's gonna realize it.
Yeah.
That like they actually have a lot more in common than they don't.
Yeah.
And that Stefan's a good guy. I feel like Stefan knows that Matt's a good guy, and Stefan feels bad for Matt too. Yeah.
Anyways,
battery's low, so we gotta go.
Bye.
Bye, guys.